March 24th, 1945. 31,000 feet over the Rhine River. The sky was a strange place that night. Black above, moonlit mist below, and the thin, glass-sharp cold of the upper stratosphere pressing against metal and bone. The temperature hung near 50 degrees, thin vapor trails snapping off wingtips like white knives. Far beneath the darkness, the Rhine front burned in scattered orange pulses. Artillery, fuel dumps, and a dying Reich's last defenses. And cutting through that frozen night was Captain Daniel Mac McAllister, age 24, a farm boy from Mason City, Iowa, now strapped into the cockpit of an aircraft the Germans had openly mocked for years. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, but not the usual one. Tonight, Mac flew the P-47M, the fastest piston fighter America ever put into combat. An experimental hot rod Thunderbolt built for one purpose: speed. A machine so temperamental, the mechanics called it the Diva, and so brutally fast that even veteran pilots needed weeks to trust it. The M model growled with 2,800 horsepower, tuned to chase down V-1s at speeds the Luftwaffe swore a bulky Thunderbolt could never reach. He nudged his gloved hand along the throttle. The engine murmured, then roared with a guttural, predatory note that echoed in the canopy. Beneath his oxygen mask, Mac exhaled slowly, steadying himself. Tonight's mission was supposed to be simple recon, high-altitude intercept watch over the Rhine. What he didn't know, what no one in the 56th Fighter Group knew, was that Luftwaffe jets were inbound. And they weren't hunting bombers this time. They were hunting the Thunderbolts themselves. Below him in the moonlit haze, 3 other P-47Ms of his flight held loose formation. Lieutenant Eric Hutchinson, a Brooklyn kid who joked too much when he was nervous. Second Lieutenant Paul Rennert, the quiet Minnesotan who'd lost his brother at Bastogne. And Major Alphonse Cabot, their leader, whose calm voice over the radio could steady a hurricane. They cruised at 470 mph, absurd speed for a warplane built like a flying battleship. The airframe shuddered, not dangerously, just reminding the pilot that this was no gentle cruiser. This was a thoroughbred forced into combat before the engineers had time to iron out the quirks. Mac kept scanning the darkness. His breath fogged the inside of the mask, oxygen hissing softly. He thought of home, of his mother's kitchen window catching winter sunlight, of his old rusted tractor, of the letter he hadn't opened yet because he feared it carried bad news. Then, a cold tremor ran up his spine. Something moved in the dark. Major Cabot's voice snapped onto the radio. "Red flight. We've got fast movers, very fast. 11 o'clock high." Max saw them an instant later, dark needles slicing moonlight. No props, no flame. Shapes swallowing distance like predators on the hunt. Messerschmitt, Me-262s. The Luftwaffe's jet aces had arrived, and worse, they were descending behind the American formation, gaining angle, preparing to sweep in and carve the Thunderbolts apart. Mac's heart hammered. You didn't outturn a jet. You didn't climb with it. You didn't run from it. Unless you were in a P-47M. Cabot's voice carried tension now. "Red flight, punch it. Full throttle. I want 44 inches. Go, go, go." Max shoved the throttle forward. The M model screamed, then leapt. The acceleration slammed him into the seat. The altimeter needle vibrated. The airframe rattled like a freight train barreling downhill. The P-47M surged, breaking 470 mph in level flight, a speed the German pilots did not expect, did not believe was even possible for a Thunderbolt. Behind him, the Me-262 pilots hesitated. They had come expecting prey. Instead, the slow, fat American had just outrun their opening dive. The Luftwaffe leader, Oberleutnant Franz Hallen, growled over his own radio. "Thunderbolts aren't supposed to do that. Stay with them. Don't lose altitude." But it was too late. The chase had begun, and for the first time, the hunters felt the unsettling shift of becoming the hunted. Mac looked over his shoulder. The jets were closing, yes, but not as quickly as they should. The P-47Ms were holding them for now. The engine howled. The wings vibrated like tense muscles. He swallowed hard. "Let's see if they still laugh," he muttered. Below the moonlight, 4 thunderbolts streaked eastward. Unexpectedly, impossibly fast. And the Luftwaffe aces, for the first time in the war, were genuinely confused. The moment the throttle hit the stop, Mac felt the P-47M surge like a living thing, its boosted R-2800 engine snarling with a metallic fury that vibrated through the flight controls and into his bones. The altimeter ticked downward slightly as their formation leveled hard, building every ounce of speed the airframe could stand. The cold wind hammered the canopy. The nose shook. The wings trembled. At 475 mph, the Thunderbolt didn't feel like a heavy fighter anymore. It felt like a cannon shell with a cockpit. But behind them, the Me-262s continued their descent. Their Jumo 004 jet engines thundering with that hollow, eerie howl that every Allied pilot learned to fear. Mac craned his neck. 3 jets, maybe 4, sweeping downward in a shallow curve, hunting with predatory patience. Major Cabot's voice crackled. "Red flight, stay low, stay fast. Don't climb, don't turn. Make them follow our line." It was the only tactic that made sense. If the Thunderbolts slowed, even a little, the jets would carve them open like tin cans. Below, the Rhine front grew louder, brighter, closer. Tracer streaks, distant bursts, a war dying in fire. The wind turbulence buffeted the cockpit as they dropped to 28,000 feet, giving the P-47Ms a thicker cushion of air for control surfaces. But the jets were gaining. Hutch's voice came next, tight with pressure. "They're closing, Cabot. Maybe 600 yards. Hold it." Cabot wasn't panicking. That steadiness was the only thing keeping the flight from fracturing. Mac's hands tingled on the controls. He looked to his 6. The nearest Me-262 slid closer, sleek, sharp-nosed, silver-green in the moonlight. Its pilot, Franz Hallen, was an ace, experienced, disciplined. He expected this to be a harvest. But something bothered him. He muttered under his breath, "Why aren't they falling behind?" The P-47M's raw speed was surprising him, not enough to shake him off, but enough to unsettle him, enough to force him to commit. Hallen pushed his throttles forward. His wingman followed. Jets streaked closer, 500 yards, 450, 400. And then Rennert's voice cracked like a whip. "Break! Break! They're firing!" A stream of 30mm cannon fire tore through the blackness, white-hot tracers slashing past Mac's canopy. One shell detonated behind his left stabilizer, rocking the aircraft violently. Mac's heart crushed into his throat. "Jesus!" Hutch's voice yelped over the radio as another burst whipped past. "They're right on us! There!" A cannon round clipped the tip of Hutch's right wing. The P-47M shuddered, but held together, barely. A scream of buckling metal echoed in Hutch's cockpit. Mac's breathing grew ragged. Sweat dripped inside his mask despite the cold. He forced himself to stay steady, stay calm, stay level, stay fast. Cabot roared, "No brakes, no turns, hold tight!" Because turning meant bleeding speed, and speed was the only thing keeping them alive. The Me-262s closed to 300 yards. Too close. Howland steadied his sights on Hutch. This was it. One clean burst, one kill. He exhaled. But then, something changed. The Thunderbolts stopped retreating, stopped bleeding speed. The M models suddenly surged again, pushing past 480 mph engines screaming at the edge of mechanical tolerance. The jets weren't gaining anymore. Howland blinked. This wasn't possible. "Thunderbolts don't do that," he growled. But they were, and suddenly Cabot seized the moment. His voice became iron. "Red flight! On my mark! Hard brake right, full dive! We force an overshoot!" Mac's eyes widened. A brake at this speed could rip wings off, but Cabot was counting anyway. 3, 2, 1, mark! 4 Thunderbolts banked hard, right in perfect unison. The world exploded sideways. Metal screamed. Air tore. The horizon spun. G-forces crushed Mac into his seat like a giant fist. The P-47Ms dove, fast. Too fast for jets at this angle. Howland's eyes widened. His Me-262 slashed past Mac's nose, overshooting by mere feet, unable to turn with the Thunderbolt's sudden dive. Another jet streaked past Hutch too wide, unable to correct. The Hunter's advantage evaporated in an instant. Now, for the first time, the jets sat in front of the Thunderbolts. Cabot roared, "Red flight! Take them!" Mac yanked up slightly, lining his .850 calibers on the nearest jet, its silver fuselage cutting through the night like a knife. He squeezed the trigger. The guns lit the sky. A river of tracers poured forward, reaching, searching, finding. The jet pilot saw it too late. Mac felt the impact through the vibration of the wings. Rounds smashing into the Me-262's right engine, sparks bursting like firecrackers. Flame erupted. The jet rolled. Smoke billowed into the night. The Luftwaffe ace's laughter, his certainty, was gone. And the P-47M had just proven it could bite. The burning Me-262 tumbled through the moonlit sky, its right engine a spiraling torch. The jet pilot, Oberfeldwebel Kurt Eberhardt, fought the stick desperately. But the fire spread too quickly. The aircraft yawed hard, rolled inverted, and vanished into the clouds below in a streak of flame. Mac felt the kill in his bones. Not triumph, not joy. Just a harsh, cold confirmation that tonight was going to be a knife fight at the edge of physics. Cabot's voice cut through the static. "Good hit, Red 3. Keep pressure on them. Don't let those jets reset." But the jets were resetting. Howland and his remaining wingman leveled out several thousand feet ahead, banking smoothly as they prepared to circle back. Their speed bled off just enough for them to reposition, an advantage the Thunderbolts could not ignore. Mac steadied his M model in the dive, throttled back a notch to avoid pushing the engine past redline. His hands trembled. He caught his breath. The adrenaline surge from firing his guns was fading, replaced by the cold terror of knowing the next pass would be worse. Below them, the Rhine appeared clearer, a wide silver ribbon reflecting distant artillery flashes. The front line burned in patches of red and yellow, smoke rolling like dark waves across the land. Rennert's voice came in, shaky. "Cabot, they're reforming. 2 jets climbing back toward us." Cabot didn't miss a beat. "Then we climb too. Everyone ease up. 28,000. Do not give them altitude." The Thunderbolts pulled upward, engines thundering in the thin night air. The climb was slow, grueling. The M model was fast, but only when level. Climbing at this speed pushed the engine close to detonation. Mac felt the vibration in the rudder pedals. Just a little more. just a little. Then Hutch broke the tension with a strained laugh. They still think we're the old D models. Renard added, voice tight. Let 'em think it. Might give us one more minute to live. Mac almost smiled. Almost. 2 miles ahead, the surviving Me-262s banked toward them. Howland, furious after losing his wingman, decided to do the unexpected, a shallow, oblique climb, bleeding just enough speed to match the Thunderbolt's angle ascent. It put him above and behind them again, a deadly position. They're climbing with us, Cabot. They're matching our angle. Cabot's answer was nearly a growl. Steady. They outrun us, but they can't turn with us at low throttle. Make them commit to the vertical. But Howland wasn't biting. He pushed his throttles to 90%, bringing the jets to roughly 435 mph. Not top speed, but perfect for controlled closing. The German formation crept closer, moonlight glinting off their twin-engine nacelles. Mac watched them with a tightening throat. Red flight. They're 3,000 yards now. Renard's voice quivered. 2,000. Hutch whispered something under his breath, a prayer or a curse. Cabot snapped. Hold. The Thunderbolts kept climbing. The jets kept closing. 1,500, Cabot suddenly barked. Dive, now! 4 P-47Ms shoved their noses down, dropping into a gut-wrenching descent. Airspeed built instantly. 420, 440, 460, the M model's sweet spot. The Me-262s followed, but their engines needed more spool time to adjust for the sudden dive. For 5 brilliant seconds, the Thunderbolts were faster. Mac felt it. Felt the M model's wild, vibrating hunger for speed. The wings pressed down. The cockpit rattled like a tin drum. Gravity smashed him deeper into the seat. They were outrunning jets. Again. Cabot's voice thundered, Roll left, cut across their line of sight. Mac rolled, the horizon flipping. The formation snapped into a coordinated banking dive, slicing across the jet's line of pursuit. Howland cursed. The Thunderbolts were moving unpredictably, deliberately, at a speed where even jets had trouble matching angle changes. He overshot again, just slightly, but enough for Cabot to seize another opening. Hutch, you're clear. Take the rear jet. Hutch yanked up slightly, the G-forces smashing his vision into a narrow tunnel. He lined his sights on the jet's left engine and fired. 8 50 cals spat fire. The tracers stitched across the sky, across the jet's fuselage, and straight into its tail section. The Me-262 jerked violently, elevators shearing off in a glittering spray of debris. The jet pitched downward uncontrollably. Howland shouted into his radio, rage, disbelief. His formation was disintegrating, and now only one Me-262 remained. One ace, one predator, facing 4 Thunderbolts that refused to behave like prey. The tables had turned. For the first time, Mac felt something burning in his chest. Not hope, not relief, but the cold, rising certainty that tonight they might survive. The sky felt tighter now, closer, sharper, as if the cold itself knew something decisive was coming. Mac leveled out at 26,000 feet, his P-47M rattling as it eased from the dive. Below, the second jet spiraled into darkness, leaving a burning corkscrew of flame and oil trailing across the night. Only one Me-262 remained. Oberleutnant Franz Howland, veteran of the Eastern Front, 14 kills, a man who'd survived long enough to understand the rules of the dying war. And tonight, the rules were bending. Howland pulled hard into a climbing arc, trying to regain the altitude advantage. His jet carried enormous momentum from the dive, enough to let him zoom back to 31,000 feet before throttling back and leveling into a perfect overhead intercept track. He knew Thunderbolts couldn't climb at those angles, or so he thought. Cabot's voice came cool and sharp. "He'll come down at us again. Red flight, shallow climb. Don't let him own the high." They angled up. Not steep, not reckless, just enough. Mac felt the thin air biting into the engine, felt the climb rate drop, felt the M model shudder as it hovered near its performance edge. He checked his temp gauge, just above safe. Manifold pressure, pushing limits. Fuel, low but manageable. He thought briefly of home, of the farm, of the silence of Iowa fields under winter ice, of the letter he hadn't opened. Then he looked up. The Me-262 was diving on them again. Hallen's perspective. The American formation looked like 4 fireflies rising through broken moonlight. Slow, predictable, easy. He steadied his gun sight. The Americans had gotten lucky. Twice. But not this time. He throttled forward until the Jumo 004s howled. The jet leapt ahead, nose pointed straight down the attack corridor. Speed built instantly. 480 mump, 500, 520. Perfect firing range was seconds away. But then something unexpected happened. The Thunderbolts didn't hold formation. They didn't scatter. They didn't panic. They moved. Hard. Violent. Synchronized. Back to Mac, Cabot shouted, "Break scissors, now!" 4 P-47Ms split apart in a rolling, interweaving maneuver that should have torn their wings off at this speed. Mac's vision narrowed to a tunnel as he rolled left, dove a hair, then pulled up again, crossing paths with Hutch's P-47M with mere yards to spare. It wasn't a dogfight maneuver. It was a dare. A challenge. Forcing the jet to choose a single target among 4 crossing lines. Hallen cursed. His aim snapped between Mac, then Cabot, then Rennert. He chose quickly. Cabot. The leader. He fired. A stream of 30mm tracers tore past Cabot's right wing, one round grazing the aileron and exploding in a burst of sparks. The Thunderbolt lurched sideways. Cabot fought the controls, barely keeping his aircraft from rolling inverted. Max saw it. A flash of fear, a flash of anger. He slammed his throttle full forward and dove into Hallen's path. The Me-262 streaked overhead, barely 10 yards above Mac's canopy, close enough that Mac felt the jet's passing shockwave punch his aircraft downward, close enough that he saw the German ace's face illuminated by moonlight inside the cockpit, close enough that Mac knew this jet wasn't invincible anymore. Rennert shouted, "He overshot! He overshot Mac!" Cabot, breathing heavily, "Take him! Take him!" The Thunderbolts pivoted, not in a turn. In a pursuit dive, a controlled, murderous plunge. Mac lined up behind the jet, distance closing fast. But Hallen wasn't done. The German ace snapped his jet into a brutal rolling dive, nose down at 35 degrees, engines screaming. The 262 fell like a stone, its dive speed superior to anything the Thunderbolts could match. Mac pushed the M model as far as he dared. 465 mph, 475, 480. Everything shook. The air screamed against the canopy. The engine roared with a tortured metallic growl. But still, the gap was closing. 100 yards, 80, 60. The jet's silhouette wavered at the edge of gun sight range. Then, the Me-262's left engine coughed. Just once. But Max saw it. A flicker, a hesitation, a stutter of flame. The jet had overspun its turbines in the dive. Hallen knew it instantly. "Verdammt!" He pulled up too sharply, stalling the airflow across his right wing. The jet wobbled. The nose dipped. Mac's mind snapped into combat focus. Steady. Steady. Don't overshoot. He aimed just ahead of the jet's path, squeezed the trigger. The P-47M erupted with fire. 8 50-caliber streams converged into one brilliant river of death, ripping into the Me-262's tail, shredding aluminum skin, cutting into its elevator. The jet spasmed, smoke trailing from the right nacelle. Holland fought it, fought hard. But the aircraft wouldn't answer. Mac kept firing. 2 seconds. 3. 4. The Me-262's tail disintegrated. Then the jet rolled inverted, flames licking along its fuselage, and fell nose first toward the Rhine. A dying star pulled from the sky. It vanished into the darkness, and the night went suddenly, impossibly quiet. Cabot exhaled. Rennert whispered, "Did we just beat jets?" Hutch laughed, half relief, half disbelief. Mac didn't answer. He just looked into the dark, where the jet had fallen, his heart pounding, his breath fogging the canopy. He had survived. They all had. But the night wasn't finished with them yet. For several seconds, no one spoke. Only the wind howled over metal, the engines thundering low as 4 P-47Ms leveled out above 22,000 feet. The Rhine now a dim silver thread far beneath their wings. The sky looked wider, emptier, haunted by the burning scars of 3 fallen jets. Mac's hands trembled against the stick. He loosened his grip, tried to breathe. Cabot finally broke the silence. "Red Flight, check in." "Red 2, I'm here." Hutch's voice wavered, still riding the high of surviving the impossible. "Red 4, I'm good." "Damage light." Rennert breathed shallowly, like every inhale risked breaking whatever fragile luck kept him alive. Mac swallowed and keyed his radio. "Red 3, I'm okay." His voice sounded far away, even to himself. He felt the drumming in his chest, the aftershock of adrenaline. That hollow, drifting numbness that came after killing another man in the dark. He blinked hard, refocusing on the gauges, fuel low. Engine temps lowering, but still sensitive. Airframe stressed. He could feel the slight flutter in the rudder. Cabot spoke again, a little softer now. "Red Flight, form up. We're going home." The words sounded unreal. Home. Below them, the front still-burned artillery winked in distant waves, like fireflies trapped in a battlefield. White phosphorus bursts flickered around ruined towns. Columns of smoke writhed upward as if clawing at the sky. Mac watched the scene from above, detached, weightless. How many pilots down there would never fly again? How many soldiers would still be fighting when he landed, when he slept, when he wrote his mother? War didn't end just because he survived a night. Cabot eased his damaged P-47M into lead position. His right aileron was scarred, elevator sluggish, but he held formation with practiced calm. Hutch nudged his Thunderbolt closer to Mac. "You saw his face, didn't you?" Mac didn't answer. Hutch pressed. "When he overshot, you were close enough to see him, right?" Mac finally replied, voice low. "Yeah." A long pause. "He looked surprised?" Hutch exhaled, a slow, heavy breath. "Yeah, I guess jets don't think thunderbolts can bite." The return flight. The P-47Ms descended gradually toward Belgium, each man scanning the horizon for late-war flak, stragglers, or desperate last sorties. The Luftwaffe was running out of everything. But cornered animals still bit hardest. Cabot guided them across dark stretches of farmland, ruined rail lines, cratered forests. The moon cast long shadows across the broken earth, ghosts of what the continent used to be. Rennert finally broke the silence. "You think they'll believe us?" "About outrunning jets?" Hutch snorted. "Hell no. They'll call it combat panic or bad angles. Cabot responded firmly. They'll believe the gun camera footage. Mac managed a faint smile. Hutch added, or they'll say the Germans were drunk. I mean, faster than a Me-262? Come on. The humor barely hid the fatigue creeping into all their voices. Mac felt something else. A heaviness. A weight that hadn't fully settled. Not fear, not guilt. Just the quiet realization that tonight, this single night, would haunt him in ways he couldn't yet understand. Approach to base. The mechanics could hear them, coming 30 miles out. The P-47Ms descended into the humid Belgian night. Their engines, the distinct tuned growl of the M models, echoed over the muddy airfield. Down below, crew chiefs and mechanics stepped out of tents, squinting into the darkness. They recognized the sound. They counted the engines. 4. All 4 were returning. Sergeant Bill, Garrison, Mac's crew chief, muttered to himself, "Goddamn miracle." As Mac lowered his landing gear, he listened to the familiar whine of hydraulics, comforting, grounding. The wheels locked with a heavy thunk. The runway grew larger in the canopy glass. The P-47M touched down hard, bounced once, then settled. The engine sputtered as Mac throttled back, the exhaust stacks glowing orange in the night. He taxied toward the dispersal area and finally exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. He shut down the engine. Silence rushed in. A silence so thick it hurt. Garrison ran to the aircraft and climbed onto the wing, eyes wide. "Captain, you look like hell." Mac removed his oxygen mask, face pale, jaw tight. He whispered, "We tangled with jets, Bill." The mechanic froze. "Jets? Tonight?" Mac nodded slowly. "Yeah, we did." Garrison swallowed. "Who won?" Mac looked away, toward the night sky, toward the dark horizon where the jets had fallen. "We did." Debriefing. The truth hits harder than combat. Inside the briefing hut, the room smelled of sweat, chalk dust, and burnt coffee. Maps covered the walls. A single lantern flickered. Cabot stood before the intelligence captain, his flight jacket half unzipped, shirt soaked with sweat. The captain frowned. 3 jets? Me-262s? Confirmed?" Cabot nodded. "Gun cameras will show 2 kills, 1 probable." The captain shook his head slowly, half in disbelief. "The Germans. They're running out of fuel, out of pilots, and yet they're still sending jets at night." Cabot stared at the floor. "It means they're desperate." He paused. "It means it's almost over." But as Max sat in the corner, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on nothing, he realized something deeper. War ending didn't mean war stopped. Not in the mind, not in the dreams, not in the things you saw in the moonlight at 31,000 feet. Tonight hadn't been about jets or thunderbolts. Not really. It had been about 4 exhausted men who refused to die. About a dying Luftwaffe refusing surrender. About speed, raw, desperate, violent speed, deciding who lived and who didn't. And somewhere in that dark sky, 3 German pilots had fallen into the night while he kept flying. Mac closed his eyes. He could still see the face of the jet pilot who overshot. And he knew that memory would follow him long after the war finally ended. The war was fading, but its shadows were not.